in 11 innings Wednesday night. Wednesday afternoon, San Diego lost to Milwaukee, putting the Dodgers in position to wrap up the title today in a day game at Arizona. A win for the Dodgers or a loss for San Diego gives the Dodgers their 12th NL West title in 13 years. First pitch today at 12:40. The LA Sparks are making plans to build a $150 million practice facility in El Segundo. It's the first time in the 28-year history of the WNBA franchise that the Sparks will have their own practice facility and headquarters. The building, which will take up 55,000 square feet, is scheduled to open in 2027. The Lakers also have their practice headquarters in El Segundo. Speaking of the Lakers, their first day of training camp is Monday. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson, KBLA Talk 1580.
Hello, KBLA delegation. Travis Smeary here. On Saturday, October 25th, LA Trade Tech becomes the epicenter of ideas that matter. The Left Coast Forum is bringing together voices that challenge, inspire, and illuminate. With keynote presentations from people like noted economist Richard Wolff, the man who breaks down capitalism in ways that make sense to working folk like you and me. And Dr. Cornel West will be there, the brilliant philosopher and activist who fighting for justice and speaking truth to power and to the powerless, for that matter. So this isn't just another conference. This is where ideas get tested, where the conversations that shape our future begin. Multiple plenary sessions, dynamic speakers, real talk about the issues that impact our communities, and then some good food and a live band. Saturday, October 25th, LA Trade Tech, Left Coast Forum. The event is free and open to the public, but you must register at our KBLA1580.com website, where you can also keep the plenary topics. The future belongs to those who show up and engage. So don't just think about you. Be part of the conversation that creates it. The Left Coast Forum is brought to you by the LA Progressive, the Empowerment Congress, Community Coalition, Partnership for Growth LA, Southwest Voter Registration Education Project, LA Care Health Plan, United Teachers Los Angeles, Black Progressive Action Coalition, St. John's Community Health, the National Lawyers Guild, the Weingart Foundation, and more. Space is limited, so if I were you, I'd register right now at KBLA1580.com. Your voice matters, your presence matters. We'll see you there.
If it's magic, then why can't it be everlasting? Like the sun time, like the poets in his rhyme, like the galaxies in time. If it's easy, then why can't
Such a powerful song with such powerful, thought-provoking lyrics. Good morning, great people. It is just after 8 a.m. on KBLA Talk 1580. Here, first things first with Dominique DePrima. I am not Dominique, but I am sitting in for her today and tomorrow. My name is Dr. Shalonda Sunshine Crawford. I am also the host of the Dr. Sunshine Show, which airs right here on KBLA from 8 to 9 a.m. But this hour, we're turning our attention to a subject that touches so many families and is also near and dear to me. It is children's mental health. And actually, I started my career as a therapist and then psychologist as a child therapist first. And anxiety is something that more and more young people are struggling with, particularly since the pandemic, sometimes in ways that are visible, but oftentimes in ways that parents may not immediately recognize. So it's really important to help our children understand their feelings, to develop healthy coping skills and to know that they're not alone in this whole thing. And that could make all the difference in their growth and well being. With all that said, my guest this last hour for me, the last hour that I am on, and also um, the last hour for me this morning is Jennifer Lacotte. Jennifer has dedicated her career to this very mission. We are in this fight together. She's an award winning author of social and emotional learning books for children ages 9 to 13. She's a school counselor with more than a decade of experience. And a wonderful asset is that she's also a mother of two. Her books help kids navigate everything from friendship struggles to anxiety, giving them the comfort and practical strategies that they need to navigate through sometimes big things that feel bigger than their little sizes. So, Jennifer, welcome to the show. It's wonderful to have you with us. How are you this morning?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here with you.
I am excited that you accepted this wonderful invitation. I think that obviously, me as a psychologist, I obviously really resonate with the work that you do, and I find it very important. So it's good to have colleagues in the struggle with me. If it's a struggle, it's a wonderful struggle that we labor without fight, but happily. And
Yes,
so I'm
yes.
glad to have you. Yeah. Quick question. Well, not a quick question. We're gonna really try to flush this out this hour. But why do you think we're seeing so many children struggling with anxiety today?
Well, recent studies show 1 in 3 children experience symptoms of anxiety. And I feel like there's so many reasons that children are experiencing more and more anxiety. I think we're doing a great job of recognizing that it is anxiety. So that's one, the work that I do, the work that you do, the work that all the amazing people in our field do
Right.
really sheds light so children understand what they're experiencing and parents know what they're experiencing. I also think social media has a role. I think the state of the nation has a role. I think living through the pandemic has a role, and just how fast paced our society is that children really don't have a lot of downtime to think through their thoughts and be alone with their thoughts and have downtime after school. I mean, they're on their devices, they're having kids contact them at home. They really don't have that time the kids years ago had to just kind of decompress and be at home and get a break from all the social pressures. So I think it's an issue with so many levels to it as to why kids are experiencing more anxiety.
As I listen to you, some of the things that you mentioned are things that I think can get away from us or are things that we don't consider when we think about children, like the state of the nation. Um, it's amazing because we're living in a time, and I don't know, I believe that there were other times in history, but we're living in a time where the social, political, climate justice, those climates are actually impacting our young people in ways that they can feel. As far as I know, when I was younger, what was happening politically in the political landscape, I didn't really it didn't really that was my parents' thing, Democratic,
I feel
Republican,
the same
the
way.
laws, the bills, like, who cares? That's mom and dad stuff. But these things are actually trickling down so personally that it is beginning to hit households and even um, the everyday lives of our children. I think that's an amazing thing. You mentioned the pandemic, but a lot of this trickle down has happened since the pandemic. We talked about that a little bit last hour. Do you agree with that? What's your perspective on that?
Yes, I do agree. And I feel like when we grew up, there was nightly news or the local news. I
Right.
feel like now kids see things on TikTok. They know when things happen in real time.
Yeah.
And it's just the news just keeps playing and playing in households. And it's so many of the stories are so disturbing. Like you think about even school shootings. And, that is a real fear for children. They're the ones going to school every day. So these things that weren't present years ago are now very much fears for kids.
Yeah, when you said that, I thought, yeah, we didn't have to go to school and worry about a school shooting. When you bring up social media, Instagram, TikTok, and whichever other platform, another thing about that is that news is being presented to young people in ways that they can actually understand, that they can ingest. It's being presented in ways that are more palatable, opening up more threats and danger. Like, honestly, some of the things that are happening, in the world and in the nation should not be discussed with children, but nevertheless, it is, and their little minds are having to take some of that stuff in. It's quite amazing when we think about it from that lens. So I'm glad that you opened up that door straight from the beginning, because I think
Yes.
I think it sets the tone for the rest of the hour.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. So what are some of the signs that parents and maybe even possibly teachers should look for? And I'm including teachers because I've done a few workshops with teachers to help teachers understand some of the challenges that students are having. So parents, but also what should teachers look out for too, that might suggest that a child is struggling with anxiety or other, mental health issues.
So there's so many symptoms of anxiety and it presents differently in each child, but some of the common symptoms are distracted students. If students feel like they're or look like they're not engaged because their mind is elsewhere, that's a sign that they could be struggling with anxiety. If they complain about physical symptoms like stomach aches, headaches, things like that, if they have to see the nurse a lot, if they have to see the nurse before tests, like if there's certain situations that you're noticing as a teacher or a pattern that every time there's a math test given, this student needs to go to the nurse because they feel sick to their stomach and they're not sure really why. That could be something that teachers notice, seeing these patterns in students. Also, irritability, with students seem really irritable and nothing really seems to have triggered them or changed in the situation. That could be another sign that they're dealing with anxiety.
I love that you bring that up because it helps to give a name or a label to some of these behaviors that we see. And labels are important in some instances, this being one, because
Yeah.
the child that you just described has historically been labeled um, a, a whiner, a complainer, a manipulator. And really, now we're learning that it may not be any of those things, but anxiety that is overwhelming. And now we have that label, test anxiety. So when you bring up just before a test all the time, now we know that there may be test anxiety. Instead of treating the child punitively, we can now look
Right.
into other avenues of addressing the child for the betterment of that child's well-being and education. I do wanna circle back around to find out what you may suggest for parents. But before we do that, we're gonna take a short pause for the cause. And when we come forward, parents, listen up. It's all about you. Stay tuned.
A safe place to go live. A great place for progressive politics. KBLA Talk 1580.
With the KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Dr. Nikolai Corte.
Let's preserve Black land stories before they're lost forever. I want to personally invite you to be a part of something historic. As journalist in residence for the Black Land Lost Narrative Archive Project, I joined forces with powerhouse attorney and social justice champion George Fothery, the man who helped make history by delivering justice to the Bruce family in Manhattan Beach, securing the first known return of land unjustly taken from Black owners by a local government. That victory was monumental, but it was just the beginning. For generations, Black families have acquired land through grit, faith, and determination, only to lose it through violence, legal loopholes, forced sales, and systematic racism. What's been taken goes far beyond dirt and deeds. It's the erasure of wealth, identity, and legacy. That's why we've launched the Black Land Lost Narrative Archive Project, a national effort to collect, protect, and preserve the stories of Black land lost before they're buried, forgotten, or erased altogether. Because there's power in telling Black stories, there is resistance in remembering, and there's justice in being seen and heard. This is where you come in. We're inviting you to be a part of this historic Black narrative archive. If you or someone you know has experienced land loss, displacement, or forced property sales, your story deserves to be heard and remembered. Your story belongs in this archive. Your truth matters not just to your family, but to our collective future. Visit blacklandlost.org today. Fill out our simple intake form and add your voice to the National Archive of Remembrance, Resilience, and Reckoning. Let's make these stories live on, not in whispers, but on the record. With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Dr. Nicolai Corte, and as always, we welcome your feedback.
Dude, did you order the new iPhone 17 Pro? Verizon, the best 5G network in America. It looks so good. Look, with this camera, everything looks better, especially me.
You haven't changed your hair in 15 years. So,
New existing customers can get the new iPhone 17 Pro, designed to be the most powerful iPhone ever, with eligible phone trade and unlimited ultimate, any condition guaranteed. That's why G's Root Metrics 80 United States 2025. All rights reserved. Trade and additional terms apply for all offers. See Verizon.com for details.
It's a classic old tale. Fried fish for dinner, cleaned up with the smell, but it's still in the house. And the neighbors are coming over for game night. They're on their way. And then you go to these animals. These air starts working instantly to fight even the quickest orders so you go from fish to fresh like that. Now, all you have to do is turn to your name.
Thanks for waking up with Dominique the Dreamer on KBLA Talk 1580.
Welcome forward. This is First Things First with Dominique DePrima. I am not Dominique DePrima. I am Dr. Sunshine, but I am happy to sit in for Dominique this morning. And I am joined by a very special guest. Jennifer Lacotte is with me this morning. She has dedicated her career to the very mission of managing children and their anxiety. I am grateful that she is here. Jennifer, I know that you are an author of books that help kids. Can you give me the name of a few or a one or two of those books?
So yes, thank you. My book about anxiety is called My Anxiety is Messing Things Up. I have a book, Why is Drama Always Following Me, which talks about girls who, mainly girls, I mean, boys can get into this too, but who are feeling like they're fighting with their friends all the time and they don't understand their part in causing drama or causing arguments or causing rifts with friendships. I have one called I Lost My BFF about a little girl who all of a sudden the friendship shifts and her friend wants to be friends with other kids and then is sad and feeling lonely, right? Isn't that so common?
It's so common. It's common for adults
I know. Yes, I know. All these things are unfortunately, life events that you have to learn how to deal with people well, and sometimes it's the first time kids deal with it, it can be really challenging for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And where can we find these books?
I have a website called Stories by Jennifer, and also they're on Amazon, and they're also available through Barnes and Noble.
good information. So Jennifer's last name is Licate. And just want to go ahead and get that plug in there in case you are needing assistance with your child or children, or if you're a teacher who could use this great resource. So jumping right back in, Jennifer, what are some signs that parents can look for to let them know that their children may be struggling with anxiety?
So there's so many symptoms, and as parents know their children the best. They know their history. They know how they've always presented. So one big thing is if there's a change. If they're noticing that all of a sudden they see a change in their child and they're having trouble getting to sleep at night, they're irritable in situations like we talked about before. If they're complaining of physical symptoms like headaches or stomach aches or bathroom issues, there doesn't really seem to be a physical cause for it. Maybe as a parent, it might be a little bit frustrating, like, oh my gosh, why are they always saying they're sick to their stomach? Or, they can't be sick again. As a parent, sometimes you get frustrated out of concern. You're like, no, I don't want them to be sick again. So just looking for some of those patterns and intervening when you see your child acting that way. Another thing is avoidance of certain situations. If they don't want to be around certain environments that they have wanted to be around, maybe they don't want to go to certain family gatherings or certain social gatherings, and you don't understand why, just kind of really delve in with your child and ask them why they don't want to go, especially if it's a change, but it could just be that your child has always had anxiety, and maybe as a parent now you're starting to realize that that might be something they're struggling with. Maybe when they were little, you just thought it was just a little quirk in their personality, or maybe that they were just a little slow to warm up. But then as they're getting older, maybe you want to help them get resources and assistance for dealing with anxiety and explore that.
At what point do you recommend getting help?
So that's why I wrote my book, because I feel like it is a barrier for a lot of families to get the help. Obviously, that's ideal to talk to a therapist, to meet one on one and talk about your own struggles and the family understanding the child's struggles and how they can help, and how as a family you can all work together to support your child. But sometimes families, there's a financial barrier, or maybe there's a wait list to get in somewhere, or it's hard as a parent who doesn't understand the system to know where even to look. Sometimes they talk to their pediatrician first, but then they're waiting a couple weeks to talk to their pediatrician, and then their pediatrician recommends some therapists, and then they wait again to do that. So I feel like my books are a great first step, so that parents don't always know how to start these heavy conversations with their children. So these books you can read with your child, and they give a name to what your child is experiencing, and they also give some strategies. So you can work with your child on using some coping strategies as you wait to speak with the therapist, or even to figure out how severe their anxiety is, if you want to maybe work on some strategies with your child at home before reaching out to a therapist. So there's a lot of different ways that I feel like my book can help, but I feel like a book or talking to the school counselor at your child's school is a great first step while you look into speaking with a mental health therapist.
I love well, first, I like that we're, helping parents with knowing and beginning to recognize whether or not their children have something, an issue that they're dealing with that is outside of the child's control, that the parent should be concerned about. But I think we don't often think enough about the school counselor, and I think we don't utilize that service, the school counselor, enough. School counselors are also well trained as well to work with children who are dealing with these types of issues and concerns, and can also just be a wonderful resource. To your point, not everyone can afford it, so definitely books by Jennifer Licate, but also the school counselor, right?
Right, right.
Absolutely.
It's a great step. It's someone that your child can talk to, especially if their anxiety is triggered at school, either socially or academically or for safety reasons. You know, there's so many reasons that a child could feel anxious at school. That's a great place for them to go to use some coping strategies and talk through how they're feeling. And as a school counselor, I had a group for students who were struggling with anxiety. And that's why I wrote this book, because there's so many different triggers to anxiety, and it's good for kids to know that they're not alone in how they're feeling. A lot of kids struggle with anxiety.
You know, the suffering is often, it remains in silence because you do feel so isolated and alone. But you just brought up safe spaces to talk about their feelings. But what do you say to kids um, who, for whatever reason, maybe they're young, too young, or maybe they just don't have the words or language to describe how they're feeling? How can how can parents, how about this? How can parents open up conversations about emotions and mental health that are age appropriate?
So I think talking to your child on their level is really important, because a little kid is not going to understand what anxiety is. I would say
Right.
things like, well, how does your body feel? Does it feel like your stomach has butterflies in it? Does it feel like your heart is beating really fast? Like, are your palms sweaty? I would talk about the physical symptoms, and then also, what's going on in their mind. Does it feel like you're having thoughts that are scaring you? Does it feel like it's hard for you to concentrate? I would talk about those kind of things on their level. But there's also, my books are for kids that are around 9 years old to 14 years old, but there are books for kids that are in kindergarten and pre-K that talk about emotions and put a name to these emotions. So that's another great resource. Is if you have little kids, you can still use these books to explain it to your child. And maybe your child says, no, that's not what I'm feeling. Okay, great. Like, you're still exploring it with your child and
Mhm.
giving a name to it. Because anxiety will present for students, even if it's not problematic. It's like, it's normal to get nervous or anxious before giving a presentation in front of the class,
Very,
or
yeah.
if something embarrassing happened, or, there's so many times that it's normal to feel anxiety, and to have coping skills and a name to it is a great step as a parent to give to your child.
Absolutely. Um, absolutely and 100%, like a lot of what you're describing are also issues that we deal with as adults. So we're going to pause just for some news and information. And when we come forward, I'd like to do just that. I want to talk about the normalization of anxiety in general with children and otherwise. The topic is children, but we're going to get into how a lot of what we're seeing is normal and to be expected when we come forward.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 50. More first things first with Dominic DePrima when we come forward.
Hungry World with BIN News Now. Hillary Clinton says Ukraine's fight against Russia is a fight for all of us, calling it our war.
If that's what President Trump is now recognizing, more to him. I'm glad to see it.
Her comments came on MSNBC's Morning Joe a day after President Trump met with Ukraine's President Zelensky and said Ukraine could reclaim all its territory. Wells Fargo is settling a lawsuit over fake DEI interviews for jobs already filled. The lawsuit alleges that Wells Fargo conducted sham interviews to meet diversity hiring mandates. The bank denies wrongdoing, but court approval is expected by October 13th. Black DC Metro Transit officer Cachet Fields uses her photographic memory to ID suspects and solve major crimes. As a bolo specialist, she's helped to crack cases from robbery to homicide, earning praise for her sharp mind and respect for all. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Joe Biden, Jen Cole, welcoming you back to the City Center Convenience Park. She's looking at the cigarettes. She just grabbed the gum off the counter. Stand up to cancer and rally. Whatever you do, go to Take a Healthy Stand.
This is the
KBLA Sports Minute.
The magic number for the Dodgers to clinch the NL West Division title is down to 1. The Dodgers hung on to beat Arizona 5-4 in 11 innings Wednesday night. Wednesday afternoon, San Diego lost to Milwaukee, putting the Dodgers in position to wrap up the title today in a day game at Arizona. A win for the Dodgers or a loss by San Diego gives the Dodgers their 12th NL West title in 13 years. First pitch today at 12:40. The LA Sparks are making plans to build a $150 million practice facility in El Segundo. It's the first time in the 28-year history of the WNBA franchise that the Sparks will have their own practice facility and headquarters. The building, which will take up 55,000 square feet, is scheduled to open in 2027. The Lakers also have their practice headquarters in El Segundo. Speaking of the Lakers, their first day of training camp is Monday. No speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray on KBLA Talk 1580.
Looking for a purposeful and passionate way to make a difference in your community? Volunteer with our Senior Medicare Patrol and help prevent Medicare fraud. S&P volunteers work in their community, educating peers about healthcare fraud and how to prevent and detect it. Free training starts soon. Check us out online or at an S&P open house near you. We're on a mission to stop fraud. Join our team. You make a difference. Visit caspvolunteer.org.
Hey, KBLA 15 delegation, your health matters to us. We know that information is power, especially when it comes to prevention and treatment. That's why we're proud to introduce the brand new KBLA Health and Wellness Hub. Online space is built just for you, connecting our community to trusted health resources, culturally relevant care, and even access to diverse clinical trials and emerging therapies. Whether you're looking for information on common conditions, mental health support, or just want to stay on top of your wellness journey, we've got you. And the best part is all on our website at KBLA1580.com. Accessible, empowering, community focused. So just go to KBLA1580.com and click on the Health and Wellness Hub icon, because knowledge is power and your health is everything. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
This is the story of one. Supervisor at a school. He knows that during cold and flu season, germs spread fast. It's important to Granger to safely stocked on the products and supplies he needs, from tissues to disinfectants to floor scrubbers. Also, that he can help students, staff, and teachers stay healthy and focused. Call 1-800-GRANGER at Granger.com or just stop by. Granger, for the ones who get it done.
Hey, can you pull up some balloons for Jack's party?
I can't. Congested.
You need Sinex Severe for this.
Severe nasal spray.
Breathe.
Sinex Severe instantly relieves nasal congestion and works 6 times faster than nasal congestion tablets. Allow you to get back to the moments that matter. Congestion.
Daddy, more balloons.
On it, try Sinex Severe from Vicks. Just Sinex. Use distracted.
Broadcasting live from Moore Park, USA. Welcome back to your home for unapologetically progressive radio. KBLA Talk 1580.
Welcome forward. Thank you so much for staying with me this morning. It's First Things First with Dominic DePrima. I'm Dr. Sunshine, and I'm joined today with Jennifer Lacotte. We're talking about anxiety and children and ways that it may show up in children. Jennifer, we got a very interesting question in the YouTube chat that I would like to present to you. And it's, what's the youngest age that, first, I'm going to frame this for the writer, but well, let me read it as it is. What's the youngest age that children should get involved with struggle stuff? And I think the first question is, at what age do you believe anxious symptoms show up? And is there a such thing as too young?
I personally don't think there's such a thing as too young. I feel like you're giving your child the language to understand how they're feeling. When I was an elementary school counselor, we had these huge posters that had how are you feeling today? And it had all the different emotions with the different facial expressions, like irritated, frustrated, anxious, helpless. There's so many emotions, and it's not just I feel sad or angry. Like it's good for kids to understand that they might be feeling frustrated. They're not angry. They're not angry at the teacher or angry at their mom. They're just frustrated. So I personally, I mean, this is coming from a counselor, but I don't think any age is too young to start talking about it. You're just giving your child the language. And I feel like when they understand what's going on in their bodies, they're less likely to act out based on those emotions. They can talk about it and they can understand what's going on and understand that they're working through something that might be hard for them. But that doesn't mean that everything around them is bad. They're just going through a hard time or in a hard situation.
I love that. And I also love the question,
Yes.
which leads to exactly what it is that I wanted to kind of jump into for the second half of the hour, and that is normalization of some of this. I say this because just in general, we don't really teach labels enough. We don't have enough language or label. We don't have many labels in our arsenal to describe things. To your point, I feel happy, I feel sad, I feel mad, I feel glad, but we don't have things like frustration. You know what I mean? And other
I
nuanced
completely agree.
labels. So it makes it very difficult for children to describe. So to Molly Bell, who asked that question about um, the youth, how young is too young to get into that struggle. To your point, I think if they have the language to articulate it, then they're not too young to do so. And I think when parents are well attuned and really understand their children, then it's never too young. It's whenever you understand what's being communicated to you. Yeah?
Yes. I completely agree. Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing I wanna normalize is that some anxiety, um, is of concern, but not all anxiety is of concern. And I think I'm wondering if maybe you and I can kind of parse out when should parents be concerned that anxiety is an issue that should be further assessed. For example, you mentioned, what if they get butterflies or a tummy ache before a test? Um, how much of that is normal and how much, maybe clinical? Because I remember taking my national licensure exam for psychology for psychologists and having butterflies and tummy aches. So what 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 is the point that where is the line where we're like, uh-oh, my child really needs some extra attention or further assessment?
I love this conversation because you're so right. There is healthy anxiety. If you don't get nervous for a test, you're not going to prepare well. So it can, a healthy amount of anxiety can lead to good decision making. So you're prepared going into giving a presentation or taking a test or, whatever the situation is. I think, I mean, and I'm happy we're having this discussion. My suggestion would be that if it's interfering with their life, if they don't want to go to school, if they're feeling in their body like they're very uncomfortable, if they're avoiding situations, if they're, of course, if they're having anxiety attacks, I mean, it's very much on a case by case basis, but I would say if it starts to interfere with your child's life and them going after their goals and what they want to do, that's when I would start getting involved. If they don't want to try out for a certain sports team because they're too anxious, even though they have the ability or it's something they really want for themselves, well, that's when you want to start getting involved because now it's holding them back. But a certain amount of anxiety is healthy and makes makes you do well and makes you make good decisions for yourself. So it really is dependent on the child.
I 100%. We call those ADLs, whenever the activities of daily living, the things that they need to do on a daily and regular basis, when those things are impacted in a negative way for a period of time, then whatever is reasonable. I mean, there's some clinical time frames, 2 weeks or a month, but yeah, you're absolutely right that we should definitely, and I love the examples that you gave to help parents with that as well too. I also like healthy anxiety. Um,
Thank you.
I'm always fascinated, Jennifer, when I hear people say, "Oh, I'm never nervous. Um, I don't get butterflies before a big speech or performance," and I'm thinking, "What?" Like, that's the part that's maladaptive and abnormal. So, because most of us get a little, and it's okay, it's
Yeah.
actually healthy. It's your body recognizing that you're doing a big thing. And to your point, it's the thing that drives us to do our best because we're recognizing that it's a big thing. And so I love the fact that we're normalizing some of these issues. I always say, on my platforms and otherwise, it's important to normalize mental health issues sometimes as just a part of the human life experience. So this
Yes.
opportunity to parse the difference is important because your children's well-being in and of itself can give you anxiety if you're a parent or a guardian or a mentor, right?
Yes, I completely agree. Yes, as parents, we're worried about our children and we want them to be happy and do well and make sure we're not missing anything. So yes,
Yeah,
it's, I think
yeah,
most parents experience that.
for sure. And I just want to make sure that we're helping the helicopter hoovering parent to put their minds at ease as well. Not all things are a bad thing, but
Right.
I do wanna take the time to parse out when you do see that your child's um, activities of daily living are impacted in a negative way. Can we talk briefly about a few simple techniques or things that parents can teach their children to manage the anxiety in the moment? Again, this could also be helpful for teachers to manage a child's anxiety in the moment.
Yes. There are some strategies that I feel like really help regardless of what situation you're in. Deep breathing is helpful no matter if you're alone or if you're around people. So if you're someone who gets nervous, I keep using the example of taking a test, but if you're getting ready to take a test, you can very easily take 5 deep breaths, and that can help to calm you down because it gives your brain more oxygen. So it will calm you down as long as you take the time to do the deep breath and give yourself at least 5. Don't rush through them and just do 2 breaths and feel like it doesn't help. I would tell parents and teachers to instruct the child to do at least 5. And if they don't feel better after that and the teacher's still passing out tests, they can do another 5. The other suggestion I would have is exercise. So if they are feeling anxious, they can get up and go for a walk and use the restroom. They can, which also helps them to get out of a situation and just take some time to calm down themselves. In my book, yes, in my book, I talk about chair push-ups, where you're sitting at your desk and you make your arms straight and kind of push up your lower body off the chair just to release some of that physical tension in your body. So there's things that you can do in front of people. Of course, if you're by yourself, you can do different kind of exercises. You can do quick jumping jacks. You can like do push-ups. You can do all kinds of things to release some of the tension in your body. And just daily exercise helps people with the feeling of anxiety. But there are strategies kids can use in a lot of different environments to help them reduce their anxiety.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is a great conversation and discussion. We're going to put a pin in it just for a second, only because we have to, but more with Jennifer Lacotte when we come forward.
More of First Things First with Dominique DePrima when we come forward.
It's never too early to start talking about money in realistic ways with your kids. JP Morgan Chase navigates how to educate your kids now about creating long-lasting, healthy money habits. Whether your kids are in elementary school, high school, or college, now is a great time to start a conversation about ways to create healthy money habits as they grow, ultimately benefiting their financial future. Talking about money in a realistic way to support your kids' lifestyle and dreams, your first banking account geared towards high school or college. It's never too early. Explaining the basics, what you earn and what you spend, building financial confidence starts with getting organized. Learning and practicing vital money skills now will stay with them for life. Tools they will have to stay on top of their finances and achieve their goals. This segment is sponsored by JP Morgan Chase.
Hey there, Los Angeles. This is James Levy Jr., publisher and editor of Los Angeles News Observer. Are you hungry for news that matters to you, the African American community of Los Angeles? Well, don't up, because we got the scoop you can create. Stay in the know and never miss a beat with our free publications completely available near you. Or hop on the digital wave and become an exclusive subscriber at OGNSC.com. Forget to join the party on Instagram and Twitter at OGNSCINC. Behind the scenes access. No more FOMO. We're staying informed, connected, and empowered together.
KBLA Talk 1580. A lot to talk about. KBLA Talk 1580, connecting needed services and solutions. The Los Angeles Regional Food Bank is on a mission to fight hunger and provide nutritious food to those in need across our community. They partner with federal, state, and local programs advocating for better policies and funding for critical hunger relief programs like Cal Fresh, the Emergency Food Assistance Program, and the Child and Adult Care Food Program. The food bank works with coalitions and local representatives to make sure hunger is addressed in every district of LA County. They also run nutrition education campaigns to raise hunger awareness and source nutritious food for distribution, all while supporting regulations that allow food pantries to operate safely. Want to help? Visit lafoodbank.org or call 323-234-3030 to volunteer or find a food bank near you. Together, we try to ensure that no one goes hungry in Los Angeles County. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
The conversation continues right now with Dominique DePrima on First Things First.
This is Dr. Sunshine here, and I am joined with Jennifer Lacotte, and we're talking about anxiety in children, the whole gamut. We're talking about it all. Jennifer, thank you so much for engaging in such an important conversation. And I do think that we need to normalize some of this and have the tools that we need to handle anxiety in children. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. I'm so happy to have this conversation with you.
Absolutely. Let's just jump right back into it for the sake of time. A question for you. How can parents model healthy coping behaviors themselves so that kids can feel safe talking about their worries? I always say that a lay definition for anxiety is overwhelming worries or worry about things that you believe you can't control. So how can parents model coping behaviors?
So as a parent, we all know that the kids are watching us all the time. They see so much, they hear so much. But I feel like one big step to do as a parent is make sure that when your child comes to you with concerns or worries or social struggles, that you respond in a calm way. Excuse me, in a calm way, because I feel like as a parent, sometimes you might get elevated because you're worried about your child and you're sad for your child and you don't want them to be struggling. But sometimes, even though you feel like you're fighting for your child, sometimes your child might feel ownership of that and might feel responsible for your negative behaviors and your negative emotions from them sharing that with you. And it might make them less likely to share that with you in the future. So that's one thing I would tell parents is to just make sure when your child shares something, you say, okay, let's talk about this. Ask them questions. Say you're gonna work on it together, and that you're happy that they shared that with you. Just give some reaffirming statements so that they know they can come to you and talk about their anxiety or whatever is going on with them that's upsetting to them.
Yeah, and I think when we talk about normalizing for a child, let me back up and say when we talk about coping behaviors that parents can employ or to be an example or a model for their children. I think maybe normalizing it by sharing age appropriately um, our our experiences with anxiety. How about the fact that we do experience anxiety as well? Just to normalize it, and to your point in the first half of the hour, giving them a safe space in their home to talk about it, with their parent to talk about it. People feel safe when they're not alone. You said that in the first half of the hour, so I think that's powerful for parents as well. Yeah?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes, I
absolutely.
agree.
Yeah.
And I love
Mhm.
that example too.
Yeah, absolutely. So for parents who worry about saying the wrong thing, right? Because we didn't
Right.
get a handbook, we didn't get instructions on how to do this thing. So,
Yes.
what's a good place to start when the child comes to you and you're afraid of saying the wrong thing?
Yes, and as parents, sometimes your child comes to you with these hard issues when it's late at night, it's right before to put them to bed. It's sometimes not at the best time. So it is good as a parent to know how important these interactions are. And I would say the first step is to just ask them more questions because that gives you time to think of some
Yeah.
strategies and some things you can do, right? You can buy yourself time. Like,
Yeah.
okay, what happened before that, and how are you feeling? And it allows them to feel heard, and it also allows you to not have to be so reactive with the solution right away. You're really gathering information and trying to figure out what the full situation is before you respond. So that would be one strategy I would suggest.
I'll tell you why I think that's an amazing strategy, because it puts you in conversation with your child, and it makes the conversation and the experience more interactive. So I think what I'm hearing you say is that if you pause for a minute and just
Yeah.
listen, then you will probably be guided to what the next question is. You can probably respond to what was said, and then there's less emphasis on what you should say, because it's likely to come up organically. And then I also think just be truthful, age
Yes.
appropriately truthful. And I keep saying age appropriately because the level of truth and the way that I communicate truth will be different with my 9-year-old than it will be with my 14-year-old, the ages that you described
Yes.
for your book. And so the same truth on using a different palette, served up on a different plate, if that makes sense. And I don't know, what do you think about that?
I completely agree. I feel like I had a position where I was an elementary counselor and also a high school counselor. So one day I would be working with high school students, and the next day I would be working with students kindergarten through eighth grade. The issues are often the same, but it's how you
It's how you do it.
explain them and how you respond to them. And it's just changing your language so that they feel heard and understood, and it doesn't seem too scary for them. Like you wouldn't want to tell a kindergartner, oh, that's anxiety. You're feeling anxiety. Have you had panic attacks? You wouldn't want to catastrophize it. You would want
Yes.
to just kind of ask them where they were and what they were experiencing, and not take them to the final step of extreme anxiety, but just, as you're saying, normalize it, right? Just talk it through with them and see how they're feeling and what they've experienced. So, yes, I completely agree with that.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Same message, um, different way to serve it up. You made me think of a phrase my mother said to me often growing up, and that was, "It's not what you say, it's how you say it." So sometimes
Yes.
it's not the 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 core message, but it's how you're delivering the core message. And that's where parental skills come in, and attunement. Once
Yes.
again, attunement, knowing what your child can and cannot handle, and then being able to speak their language, meeting them where they are at the time, that the message needs to be communicated. So, I've been saying all morning, time flies when you're having fun. And obviously, Jennifer, you and I are having a ball because
Yes.
the clock is ticking. And I feel like there's so much we still need to get to. I have so many questions for you that I was not able to answer. But if we could answer just one last question, before we part. And I'm so glad that we got your book information out there early. But one last question. If a parent is listening right now and um, um, would need a key message, what is the key message that you want children and their parents to take away from your work? Can you give me that in like 30 seconds?
Key message is that this is a journey, and anxiety is on a continuum. So just because your child is feeling anxious doesn't mean that they'll always feel anxious, and there's things they can do to feel better. And that's what the coping strategies are for. And that's my message. You can feel better.
And listen, and you can feel better. We're going to just put a pin and a period right there. If you missed any portion of this hour or any of today's show, please feel free to go back and watch the YouTube link or of this, and get all the coping skills that you may need to help and assist your child. As always, I am honored to be here sitting in for Dominique DePrima. I'm Dr. Shalonda Sunshine Crawford. You have an amazing day, and I will meet you back here tomorrow at 6 a.m. for more First Things First with Dominique DePrima. Coming up next, Tavis Smiley with the Tavis Smiley Show, and you don't want to miss that. So stay tuned and hang with us.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
With BIN News, Hillary Clinton says Ukraine's fight against Russia is a fight for all of us called the Atomic War.
If that's what President Trump is now recognizing, more to him. I'm glad to see it.
Her comments came on MSNBC's Morning Joe a day after President Trump met with Ukraine's President Zelensky and said Ukraine could reclaim all its territory. Wells Fargo is settling a lawsuit over fake DEI interviews for jobs already filled. The lawsuit alleges that Wells Fargo conducted sham interviews to meet diversity hiring mandates. The bank denies wrongdoing, but court approval is expected by October 13th. And Black DC Metro Transit officer Kashay Fields uses her photographic memory to ID suspects and solve major crimes. As a BOLO specialist, she's helped crack cases from robbery to homicide, earning praise for her sharp mind and respect for all. BIN News now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Joe Rogan Johnson Holmes, welcome you back to the City Center Convenience Mart. Uh-oh. She's looking at the cigarettes. But she just grabs the gum off the counter. Stand